אשרי האיש אשר לא הלך בעצת רשעים ובדרך חטאים לא עמד ובמושב לצים לא ישב. כי בתורת אדוני חפצו ובתורתו יהגה יומם ולילה. היה כעץ שתול על פלגי מים אשר פריו ייתן בעתו ועולהו לא ייבול וכל אשר יעשה יצליח. לא כן הרשעים כי אם כמוץ אשר תדפנו רוח. על כן לא יקומו רשעים במשפט וחטאים בעדת צדיקים. כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים ודרך רשעים תאבד. מזמור לדוד. אדוני מי יגור באוהליך מי ישכון בהר קודשך. הולך תמים ופועל צדק ודובר אמת בלבבו. לא רגל על לשונו, לא עשה לרעהו רעה וחרפה לא נשא על קרובו. נפסה בעיניו נמאס ואת יראה אדוני יכבד. נשבע להרע ולא ימיר, כספו לא נתן בנשך ושוחד על נקי לא לקח. עושה אלה לא ימות לעולם. מזמור לדוד. אדוני רואי לא יחסר בינות דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינעלני. נפשי שובב ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיל צמוות לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך עמי נחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. תשענת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה. אך טוב החסד רדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. We will invite Jacob Kraus to come and to lead us with chapter 23 in the book of Psalm in English. As his grandmother used to call him, the einzige Zindele, the only boy, the only grandson.
A song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days.
As he's saying goodbye to Mildred Kraus, I first want to offer condolence to the family Ayla, the oldest daughter, and her children Jessica and Jason, and their two little grandchildren, great-grandchildren, Blake and Tyler. Eliza and Jared, Morgan and Sam, and the second daughter Rory and her husband Richie, and the daughter Amelia, Eddie and Bunny, Rachel and Anna and Jacob Kraus. How you sum up a life of somebody who lived for 91 and a half years, was blessed to live such a long life, such a productive life. And Kabbalah tells us that the name that the parents gave the child when she was born is a prophecy. And therefore, when you go to the name, you can sometimes find the secret of the person. A Hebrew name that your parents gave her is Malka. Malka means queen. She was a queen in everything, throughout her life. First of all, she was the only child to her parents. That for sure, by her parents, she was the queen. She was everything. She was the king and the queen, everything you have. Her parents came from Europe, from Kiev and from Krakow, and they built a life here in America. And that was the only child. And just yesterday, I discovered that your grandparents actually used to attend Tzemach Tzedek synagogue. That was the synagogue that the rabbi of the synagogue was my wife's Miriam's grandparents. And since then and now, the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren attending our synagogue. And your parents, actually, your mother and your father lived next door to Rabbi Alevsky, who are Dvora is the daughter of Rabbi Kazen. And now it's the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, 4 generations. Your mother did not love the idea that she was the only child. More correct, she hated it. But she used to tell the children, you are so lucky that you have siblings. She used to tell it to the grandchildren, we used to like fight between each other. Kind of, you are lucky you have a whom to fight. Not everybody has it. But, and in her life, because she was the only child, her parents were constantly present in her life. You remember going to your grandparents constantly, and the grandparents coming to your house. Your grandparents spoke Yiddish, and therefore she spoke Yiddish, Mildred, and you understand a lot of Yiddish. And even I see the your children, the great-grandchildren, so to speak, still know a few words here and there in Yiddish because your mothers used to use words in Yiddish, like calling them and there is many other words you mentioned. But not only with this, she was like a queen. You looked at her, she always had a smile on her face. She always was positive. She had only nice words to say about people. She never had one bad word to say and about anyone. And that's why she had many friends. When somebody is always positive, always upbeat, smiling. Now, most of the people, for the first half of a day, they will never smile. And she was smiling. Whenever I saw her, I remember she was always, then there is no surprise that she had a lot of friends. She had this dignity to herself. And she was a very intelligent woman. As you mentioned yesterday, she read every day the New York Times, the Plain Dealer, the Jewish News, and everything else. And she used to send articles to anyone according to what he needs and what he wants to hear, what she feels it's important for him to read. She used to send books with notes and so on. She went to college after, when Eddie was in first grade, she went to college to learn sociology, and in 5 years, because she had to take care of the family, she graduated. She used to go to museums. She went to the art museum in Cleveland every week for classes and for lectures, and she was very involved in studying and learning and exploring. She used to go to College of Jewish Studies and learn. A person who is constantly thirsty for knowledge, he wants to know more and more and more. Never enough. Taking notes from everything, every class. Your parents used to travel a lot throughout their life. Wherever they went, they visit the museums, and she always bought something, an art piece from everywhere in the world. And as you told me yesterday, your house was like a museum. I mean, the walls were full of pictures and art, and every one of them, she knew exactly the story, and she was ready to tell you the story. Where in what it represents, and who made it, and who created it, and so on. But also, your mother made sure when she traveled all over the world to find a synagogue. And as Eddie told me, she used to schlep your father to make sure she is visiting the synagogue in this place. And there is a synagogue everywhere. But more important than everything to your mother was your family. She kept the family together. Every night there was supper in the house. She cooked every night. For sure, Friday nights, the whole family used to come to be there. You had to be there on Friday night, no matter what. And whoever was in town, whoever was not in town couldn't make it. But everybody was together, especially in holidays. And all of you, the kids, the grandchildren, have such amazing memories from this time, spending time together. Your parents were married for 62 years. How many people can say it today? They had a long life. You know, today is the month of, we are in the month of Elul, the month before the high holidays. Elul stands for the acronym, Ani ledodi vedodi li. I'm to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. It's a month of love, if you want. Then how appropriate is that a couple will had a love affair for 62 years, she's passing away in this month. In general, I believe that people fulfill their dreams. People have dreams, they fulfill it. The problem is they quit dreaming. That's the problem. But if they would continue to dream, they would even reach even higher and higher. Your father's dream was to be at Jacob's bar mitzvah. That was his dream. And he accomplished the dream. And I saw him at the bar mitzvah. And I felt that, and I saw that he lived for this, and he accomplished it. Your mother had other dreams. She wanted to see Eddie as a mayor. She rather would see him as a president, but she settled for a mayor. And I must tell you, when I saw her at your inauguration, was it January? December, thank you. And she was barely holding her eyes open, barely holding her head. But you saw how she was beaming with joy and pride and happiness. And all of you, but the biggest dream she had, what she missed, she did not have siblings. She wanted a big family, and she wanted that the family should be together. As she used to tell her daughters, you called already your brother? I want to know if she told her son also, you called already your sister? That's life. But when I saw you yesterday, the whole family sitting together, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, I saw them this morning, she really accomplished her dream. Her dream was to have a big, united, loving family, and to see how everybody sits together, gets along, and really enjoys his other's company. That was the biggest dream she fulfilled. תהי נשמתה צרורה בצרור החיים. And now we'll hear from Eddie and then from the grandchildren.
So I know you're not supposed to do this, but thank everyone for being here, for my mom. I was standing here 3 years ago. I hear you, Tyler. And talking about my dad, and that was really very difficult for me to talk about my dad. And this time, it's probably equally or more painful for me. When I was married 26 years ago, I gave a speech at my wedding about all the women in my life. And I talked a lot about my mother. And my mother was the Esha Chayil, a woman of valor. There was no one more a woman of valor than my mother. Parents give you everything in life. My sisters and I were blessed with the greatest parents in the world. And they gave us everything we needed in life to prepare us materially, spiritually, to be happy adults, to be good parents ourselves. My father gave me my whole life, my whole career, undergraduate, law school, the prosecutor's office, a legal career, elected office, a lot of it becoming mayor of Solon, learning how to be a father myself, how to be a husband. He taught me so much. But as I read some notes this morning, if truth be told, and I think my sisters would probably agree with this, that our mom gave us probably the greatest gift of all. She gave us a heart and soul. Our mother, she taught us that success in life, success in this world, was not about money. It was not about professional accomplishments. It was about your faith, your family, your friends, how you treated others. My mother's life was measured in the mitzvahs that she did for us and for everyone else around her. The gifts that our mom gave us, Mildred Kraus gave us, was not something you see in a newspaper or hang on a wall or even posted on Facebook. It was deep in our neshama. It was deep in our soul. And that's where my mom reached my sisters and I. The rabbi said my mom was an only child. My grandpa Avi was from Tsarist Kiev, and he fled the Russian army after World War I. And my grandma Gussie was born in an area of Poland called Galicia, near Krakow, which my daughter and I visited just a couple years ago. They met in Cleveland, they married, and my mom was born on February 3rd of 1927. She was 91 and a half years old. She grew up off of 105th Street near St. Clair in the Glenville area. She attended and graduated Glenville around the time World War II ended. She was very social, a lot of parties, a lot of dances. She went to the beach a lot with a lot of girlfriends, and she had many boyfriends. And she was very popular, and she was very attractive. She used to date one of my best friends, Gary Roebuck's father. Around the year 1950, she met this very dashing young man, William Kraus, who would be by her side for the next 65 years. They had a beautiful courtship. They fell in love, and they got married about 1953. My parents had the most magical life together for 65 years. On Milverton Road in Shaker Heights, Bromley in University Heights, and for most of our life at 4491 University Parkway, the home that we all loved so dearly. They loved each of us, their 3 children, more than anything in the world. They went out a lot. They traveled the world together. They had late evening parties at our house, because I remember being up well into the morning listening to all their friends, playing poker, having fun, very loud, but it was a lot of fun. They even referred to each other as doll. And now my mom is with her doll, my dad. My mom was a traditionalist in every sense of the world, but she was a woman of the world. She was modern. She was forward-thinking. She was very progressive. She was very learned. She was all self-taught, and she was very avant-garde. My mom exposed us to the world. From a very early age, she would schlep us everywhere, to shows, plays, live theater. I remember all the plays, Old Man River, Hello Dolly, and many, many, many others. Mom would schlep us to the front row, to the carousel, that carnival tent in Warrensville Heights, Playhouse Square before there was even a Playhouse Square. My sisters and I share that love for theater today because of Mildred. She taught us the beauty of classical music. While all I could think about growing up was albums like The Wild, The Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle, Greetings from Asbury Park, The River, Darkness on the Edge of Town, or Born to Run, Mom schlepped us to the world's greatest orchestra. At Severance Hall, at Blossom. To my mom, the boss couldn't hold a candle to Tchaikovsky, to Beethoven, to Mozart. My dad even loved Mom schlepping him to the orchestra. And he developed the love of classical music because of my mom. My mom was a student of everything. There was never a time where you didn't walk in the house where she wasn't reading a book. She didn't have the New York Times in front of her or something to learn. It could have been the art section that she was reading, a recipe, or about the war in Kosovo. But she was always learning. She wanted to go to college so much that she didn't get a chance after high school. Now, while we were children, my mom attended John Carroll Universities. She was probably the finest student ever at John Carroll. She would study with students half her age. She would study endlessly at home and take more notes, and she read more literature for school than any student imaginable. It took my mom a few years to get her degree, but when she graduated, it was only summa cum laude with a degree in sociology for my mom. I remember her graduation so well because my dad and I were so excited to hear that one of John Carroll's greatest alumni, a guy by the name of Don Shula, was going to be speaking at my mom's graduation. But the reality of it was we were so proud of Mom in her cap and her gown, and all the students at John Carroll just loved her. My mom's greatest love of all probably was art. She was a student of art history. She spent every Wednesday, and I mean every Wednesday, with her friends, Edie and Joey, and countless friends at the Art Museum, and many others. To her, Renoir and Cézanne and Picasso and all the others were full of life. She could describe in detail the history, the setting, what was going through the mind of the artist. She would be at the museum for hours. My mom probably attended thousands of lectures on art history. If you ever were at our house at 4491 University Parkway, it reminded you of an art museum. The entire walls were covered, and there was no space for anything else. My mom collected art from all over the world, and there was a story behind each piece of art. I remember the days I would go to the art museum with my mom, and it wasn't a half an hour, 45-minute journey. It was hours and hours of every piece of art, looking at it in detail, and discussing it and talking it and lecturing about each piece of art. And if there was a special exhibit at the art museum, God help us. To this day, I think our love of art came from our mom, came from Mildred. She even loved sports. Even though she could never understand football, my dad and I tried to explain to her what a first down was, but she never got it. Even Jacob tried to explain to her everything about sports, but somehow she never quite got, but it didn't matter. She played golf, she played tennis with her doll, and she developed a love of swimming. They swam together their whole life at Mayfair, the J, University Heights Pool, every winter in Florida. I think my mom was actually faster than Dad, which that was unbelievable that any person could be faster than my father. Our love of swimming, probably to this day, came from Mom and Dad. My mom was the world traveler. She schlepped our family everywhere, and I mean everywhere, all over the country, from California to Colorado, to Florida, South Carolina, New Orleans, Biloxi, Mississippi, Canada, Cape Cod, you name it. She had the itinerary all planned. We had a deal. Mom would schlep us and me to an art museum as long as I could go to a zoo and see a stadium. She schlepped my father all over the world. Croatia, Japan, Morocco, Italy, Russia, France, Spain, England, Wales, Switzerland, you name it. Everywhere they went, there was always many art museums, concerts. And my mother would always find the Jewish community. And she would find the shul, and she would meet the people in the Jewish community and talk to them about their history and their culture. Even in Curacao, of all places Curacao, my mom found the shul. And they davened at the Curacao shul. My mother wasn't a tourist. She was a student on an educational adventure everywhere she went, her whole life. Our mom was probably the most positive person that God ever created. She was upbeat about everything. In 57 years, unlike my sisters probably, I never argued with my mother. It's an amazing thing. She never had to say a bad word about any person that I ever remember. It was only good. She always thought of others, never about herself. We came first. If we ever said anything about anyone else that wasn't nice, we actually had to go to their house. She took us there to apologize. There could have been a major argument, Hyla storming out of the house maybe, my dad not liking the food, my dog Snuffy on the table eating the food, and my mom would have smiled and said, everything's fine. We're together as family. Food to my mother was not just for sustenance. Like me, she did not just eat to live. My mother lived to eat. Her meals were delicious. The amazing corned beef with mustard, the spaghetti with the kosher sausage, dairy night on Monday night, steak and fries on Sunday, veal with lemon, chicken with every imaginable fruit sauce God ever created. My mom even, for the most part, liked the food at Menorah Park, which I helped her eat on many, many occasions. And it wasn't that bad. Yiddishkeit and family were the cornerstone of my mother's life. Every Friday night at Shabbos, whether Rory was somewhere else, she'd find her. Whether I was at a bar somewhere, she'd find me. And later, with our families together, I would schlep my kids over to Grandma's house to be together on Shabbos, because there was no greater meal than Shabbos dinner, and that's where I got it from. Being together as a family was my mom's greatest pleasure. Pesach Seder was legendary. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, breaking the fast, amazing family meals and get-togethers. My mom loved everything Jewish. The food, the holidays, the family, the traditions, the spirituality, the shul, the prayers, Jewish people, institutions throughout the world. She loved Israel. Traveled to Israel with my dad, reading about Israel, and of course, wonderful Israeli art. My mom loved us the most. We were her life. She was so proud of my sisters and me. My sister Hyla was such a source of pride in her family. She thought my sister Rory was the greatest teacher in America. She really did. That is no joke. And she actually told people at Menorah Park that I was the president. I know some of you here maybe, well, I'm not going to go there. And I was so proud to have my mother. It was like having my parents at my swearing-in ceremony in December. That was such a great source of pride. The only thing that rivaled my mom's love for the three of us were her grandchildren. She has 7 grandchildren, and she loved them so dearly. Jessica was the first, and Jessica gave my mom the greatest gift of all. Great grandsons, 2 of them. Blake, who's a big boy now, and Tyler. And just a few days ago, when Jessica was in with my mom Tyler was actually sitting with my mom, and my mom looked up and smiled. And she was so happy. She couldn't talk much, she didn't have a lot to say, but when she saw Tyler next to her, it was truly amazing. Eliza, being the Kraus in the middle of a Nussbaum sandwich, she adored you, Eliza. She just adored you. When I came back and I showed her the pictures of your wedding, she smiled so much. She was so happy for you guys. And finally, Jared pulled the plug. And those pictures in her face were priceless when she saw you guys at the wedding. One of my mom's greatest pleasures, when she walked down the aisle, she didn't walk, but she was wheeled down the aisle 3 years ago at Morgan and Sam's wedding in Chicago. She was just right after my father had passed away, and she was beaming to see Morgan and Sam get married in Chicago. I even schlepped my mom to the Shed Aquarium, wheeled her down Michigan Avenue so we can get to that aquarium. Of course, she had to go to a museum while she was in Chicago. She was so proud of Morgan's accomplishments and all the professional accomplishments. She loved you so much, Morgan. You should be very proud. Rachel, you had Grandma's spirit. You talk with her. Your talks, I know, meant as much to her as it did to you. Our FaceTime on Sundays about all of your travels all over the world and adventures. She was so fascinated by you. When I showed her pictures of all your travels, she would smile and she would say, I was there. I remember the shul in Prague. I remember Morocco. I remember all the places that you visited. Hannah, Grandma loved you. She loved that vivacious smile and that passion and your outsized personality. She just absolutely loved it, loved seeing you. And she was so proud that you were going to be a third generation Kraus lawyer. All she talked about all summer was when is Hannah starting law school. And so proud that you were going to be here going to law school. Amelia, you came into our lives, 15 years ago, something to that effect. And you were the apple of Grandma's eyes. The devotion you had to her was truly amazing. You would visit her in good times and bad. Maybe sometimes you didn't always want to be there, but you came. And you were such a great granddaughter. You spent countless times with her. At her house, the fountains, Menorah Park, and you sat with her. And she loved you so very dearly. And Jacob, you were her Ainsa Gazino, her only grandson. When I'd come to Menorah Park, and I'd say, "Vis machst du, Grandma? How you doing, Grandma?" She only looked at me, and she said, "Where's Jacob?" That's all she wanted to see was Jacob. You had a way with her, Jacob, that was so sweet and so sincere. I didn't think you'd be able to do it again. You did it with Grandpa, got in his soul, but you got in Grandma's soul. You understood her, you were a part of her, and you loved her, just like she loved you. So as we talk about my mother, so when you all think about her, she had an amazing life, 91 and a half years. She married the man of her dreams, the love of her life, wonderful children and grandchildren. It was her soul that was bound up in what we will always remember. So when you go to a museum, you visit an art museum and you look at nice art, when you go to the orchestra, when you go to the theater, when you're cooking Shabbos dinner on Friday night, when you're preparing for this Yontif, and you're cooking for Rosh Hashanah and fasting on Yom Kippur. Think of my mother. That's the greatest blessing that we'll all have. To be together as a family and really understand the inner soul that my mother was. And I want to thank everyone for being here.
The grandchildren are coming up? No? Please rise for the memorial service. אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, אמצי מנוחה טהורה על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר כי המזהירים את נשמת מלכה בת אברהם שהלכה לעולמה, בעבור שאנחנו מתפללים בעד הזכרת נשמתה בגני עדן תהא מנוחתה. לכן בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני ונחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence, in the lofty levels of the Holy One, and the pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Malka Bat Avraham, who has gone into your world, and whose memory we pray. May repose be in paradise. May the Master of Compassion bring her under the cover of God's wings and bind her soul in the bound of life. May the Lord be her heritage, and may she repose in her resting place in peace. And let us respond, Amen. Please be seated. We will continue the service in Mount Olive Cemetery, and then the family will sit Shiva at Eddie Bani Kraus on 36285 Stony Brook in Solon on Sunday tonight until 8:30, and services will be 7 o'clock. And Monday to Thursday we'll have services will be from 6:30 to 8:30, and services at 7 o'clock.